Blue water. Yes.
Setting it up. Yeah, man. This is a Gatorade Zero.
Mm.
And we are live, baby, baby. What
Hey,
is going
hey.
on?
Is this 58?
58, dude. How old?
58. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
too old, man. This is gonna be a fun show, Chad. We got Mr. Mike Jones coming on,
Yeah,
member of
PA
the
State Representative Mike Jones from the 93rd District, which is York County. What's up?
What Up?
He was born and raised in York County, so this is a good thing. And he wants to come on here and talk about how pivotal York County is going to be to Trump winning Pennsylvania.
And just to show everybody out there how naive I am, but maybe have a little bit here, he's a part of the House of Representatives, which I believe is a member of Congress, I think, part of the
Pennsylvania
legislature.
State Congress, yes, correct.
Yeah. So we're gonna learn all about what that entails, what he has to do. But this dude is cool, man. From what I've seen, he was fighting for Pennsylvania to not close down all the businesses during COVID-19.
Yep,
So he was on the right side, following the science rather than listening to momos.
right. The science has since proven that was a whole bunch of fucking horse shit.
Yeah, man. But good for him for being ahead of the curve and like saying that stuff and trying to stand up for the people because not many politicians have our backs nowadays. So it's nice to
No,
have some
exactly.
dude.
And then he was helping to primary two people against the incumbents, Republicans, and because he wanted to because the two incumbents were okay with the COVID lockdowns, and so he helped these two primary against them, the incumbents, and they got pissed off and they tried to censure him for fucking basically supporting other candidates than the incumbent. This is the Republican Party itself going after him.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck?
Yeah, man. Well, like we say all the time, Chad, it's not just the left that's bad, the right that's bad. It's the people that are on the sides that are bad. It just happens to be we have a lot of liberal people on the left side that's doing a lot of the horrible shit, but it goes across the board. And that's why
It's
we
true.
say, gotta vote for the people. Realize the ones that have our back, don't lie to us, and gonna follow through with their promises. So,
Yep. Fucking
um,
rhinos. Fuck them.
somebody was commenting to us, saying that you guys only attack the left, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, dude, we might talk about the left more than often because they're the ones doing the most brazen shit right now. But we
Yeah.
say it all the time that it's you got to drain the swamp. It's the entire form of it from right to left.
Hmm. This is
Uh,
true.
yeah.
Just so happens that the left is really fucked up right now.
Yeah, man. And
It's like beyond. It's fucking insane. The shit that they stand for and they're doing is just wild, man.
well, the fact that we have another natural disaster about to hit Florida and they weren't able to, help the people in North Carolina yet is just, this is scary, man.
Well, then you got KJP, fucking Karine Jean-Pierre, going at like Ducey's asking her from Fox is asking her questions about, hey, why can funds immediately be available for Lebanon, 157 million, but
Right.
Congress has to come back into session and approve money for North Carolina? Why is that? She's like, though the whole premise of your question is misinformation. He's like, what the hell's what's misinformation about it? And she's, well, it's misinformation. They just say this and they never explain themselves. It's misinformation.
Right.
She's
Because
a
she had her head.
lying sack of shit, and it's just wild to watch her operate. It's like, how do you fucking sleep at night when you lie like that?
Exactly, man.
And okay, explain why is money immediately available for foreign countries and not for people in America? Why does Congress have to approve it?
It's
It
such
doesn't
a
make any
valid
sense.
it's such a valid question, and to label it as misinformation question is absurd.
Well, this is
Like,
their playbook. This is the Dem playbook. It's like, oh, you asked me a real question that needs a real answer. Oh, this is misinformation. Oh, it's just false. The whole premise of your question is just false. Okay, no, it's not.
okay, can you tell me how to ask that question without it being a misinformation question?
Exactly. No,
Answer
nothing offered for that. And eventually she just storms off and leaves. She doesn't even fucking answer anything. She just leaves.
Sounds about right, but that should be
Hmm.
telling to people. You know what is the things that should be
You
telling to
would
people?
think it would be. You would think it would be.
Yeah,
But
man.
unfortunately, everyone's so fucking tribal now. The left is so ingrained with their tribalism bullshit, the right too, that they will just overlook any like crazy negative shit that's going on with that party. They'll just overlook it and say, "Oh no, it's fine. It's okay." They don't want to. They don't want to change the name to minor attracted people to help protect pedophiles. No, they don't want to do that. They don't. They're not trying constantly changing laws to lessen uh, what happens to sex offenders. That they don't. They don't do that. The
Right.
left's not doing that. They're
The
not supporting laws that basically say, "Oh yeah, it's okay to fuck a kid. No problem. Go ahead. We won't do much to you." That's all coming from the left. And why? Why is that? Why?
that
Is
that you
Diddy a Democrat?
well, is Diddy going to be naming it?
Diddy, Oprah, all those motherfuckers are Democrats. They're all, and why? They're all fucking kids. It's crazy.
Dude,
Allegedly.
allegedly. Yeah, so
I
check this
feel I
out.
feel really bad for just let me say this. I feel really bad for Justin Bieber because Usher, who got abused by Diddy, then finds Bieber and throws him to the wolf of fucking Diddy. And that
Yeah.
kid's all fucked up. I mean, it makes sense now why he's you get fame, you get all that money when you're young, but it makes sense why he's so fucked up because he got basically probably molested and raped by fucking Diddy.
100%, man. Yeah, I mean, you're
And
hitting the
that's a
nail on the
shame.
head. It's completely a shame, dude. You hit the nail on the head with that. Dude, but kind of touching on this. So, Epstein, a victim of Epstein said this about Bernie Sanders, dude. So I got to figure out the name and Bobby, you could kind of maybe look this up as I'm going about it, but so
Oh,
nobody knew what I was going with here.
oh, and by the way, Elon on Tucker just said if Trump becomes president, the Epstein list is coming out. That's why they're fighting so hard.
Yeah, baby, let's go. That list needs to be out. We need to know who
Fuck
these
yeah, it does.
fuckers are.
And
You
I
know,
hate when people are like, "Oh, Trump's on that list." I'm like, "No, it's not. No, if he was on that list, you'd
it would
fucking
be out.
know. You
It would
would
be out.
know."
100%. So anyway, this victim that was being raped by somebody said that she witnessed Bernie Sanders. This is on Epstein's Island. Witnessed Bernie Sanders being held at gunpoint, forced down to rape a boy.
Ooh,
Otherwise, they would kill him. So, like, she witnessed this
wow.
as she's being raped, and so this is how crazy that island gets. That they are forcing people at gunpoint to do this shit and have them on video, and then they own them by the balls.
That
Like,
shit might have happened to Diddy's too, for God's sakes.
right, dude. But you start hearing stuff like that, man. It's like, what the fuck, bro?
So you're gonna have people, if that list, when that list comes out eventually, you're gonna have people in there that were, if that is true about Bernie, that were
Right,
forced into doing this shit
right.
for blackmail purposes. Uh, okay, that makes it way more fucking complicated.
Want
Way
me?
more
You
complicated.
want me
Hold
to
on,
come up?
hold on one second, Bobby. Not yet with that, but because I want to get this out with that. You could write that in the chat, Bobby. This way you don't have to come in with a vocal. But because now you made me lose my train of thought. But so this is what I'm gonna say. Like, if that was happening, me as an individual, Chad, I don't care, gun to my head or not, my dick's not gonna be working to rape a little boy. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly. How would you even get aroused by that? I mean,
right?
yeah,
So it's like I don't understand how stuff like that happens, like, or like, what kind of drugs they were giving these people, or if that account is correct. Again, this is supposedly a victim on there. I saw it on Twitter, and she was on a podcast, speaking about it. But it's just crazy, man. That list needs to come out. They need to be looking into these people. Like, the fact that all this went on and nobody, Epstein's dead over it, Ghislaine is in jail, but nobody that was on that
yeah.
island doing this shit is being
Well,
brought up on charges or
that's what Elon said on Tucker. He prefaced this whole argument by saying, or this whole discussion by saying, there's still 500 or 600 people in jail for January 6th. That horse shit. And nobody on the Epstein list is arrested. Nobody. Not
right.
fucking one of them.
It's crazy, man. It's like, what does it take to for them to why are people not up in arms about this?
Well, because most of it's, I guarantee you, when that list comes out, it's all going to be mostly fucking Democrats. It's going to be fucking 95% Democrats, and mainstream media doesn't want to cover it because they don't want to fuck up their whole deal. And, oh, and James O'Keefe just did an undercover with the one of the lead producers at MSNBC, I believe.
Okay.
And he says in the video, we are in lockstep with the Democrat Party. We are basically an extended arm of the Democrat Party. This is the fucking producer admitting it on camera. Now we know this just
Mm-hmm.
from observing it, but to
Right.
have an executive producer at MSNBC saying this on camera, there's no objective journalism. Right there,
No.
it's out the fucking window.
And the
You
fact
are
that they
being fed propaganda constantly every day by that network, CNN, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, and probably a little bit on Fox too. Let's not get crazy.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Propaganda.
Like I said, I think Fox is the most balanced. Again, they lean very far right and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But at least they report on stuff and they'll give, their opinion. They'll let you know it's their opinion, but they're reporting shit,
Yeah. But
which
you have yeah, the media is controlled by the Democrat Party.
yeah.
Period.
I mean, the fact that North Carolina's in and out of the news cycle, they're not even talking about FEMA not being there and helping them out. The fact that the first and second attempt on President Trump's lives are in and out of the news cycle so quick and not being spoken about is crazy, man.
It's crazy. Well, not even that. FEMA might be there, but they're not getting the supplies to people, and they're not allowing people to fucking help, like people with private helicopters, like that Greg Biffle guy that Bill knows. Like he's flying helicopters in there to try to help people, and FEMA's cutting off fuel supply. Like, no, get the fuck out of here.
Right,
Why?
right. And like you were saying, I think before the show started, how does the federal government have money to just send overseas without calling, Congress into session and all that stuff, but they
Yeah,
can't send money to us Americans for a
we
natural
can
disaster.
send hundreds of millions, billions of dollars to all these countries overseas without any fucking oversight, without just the president says, "Hey, we're sending $8 billion there, there," and then, but then something happens in America and FEMA's out of money because they spend it all on the illegals, and they deny that, like we don't fucking know, and they say that's a lie, which it is not, and then there's no money for you know a natural disaster in Americans. Okay, I mean it's America last. That's what this administration and this government, for that matter, is all about. America last. They don't give a fuck about you. Wake up.
Well, you know what it is though, Chad. So it's like, but they start to realize that they're still being voted in. So it's like they realize like it doesn't matter. Like if the people themselves aren't going to wake up and stand for themselves and
Right.
vote people out and all that stuff, it's like, why should they change their ways? You
Yeah.
know?
All these negative things happen, and either the news doesn't report about it, so people don't know about it, or they know about it, but then they get you know they get pulled in by their bullshit local ads and whatever they're saying to them. They're just the lies that they spew to them, and they go, "Oh, I guess I got to vote for them because Trump's bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Republicans are racist. Okay, yeah, got it."
I just had more faith in humanity, I guess, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like I had more faith in the American people, just people in general. Like, I don't know. It's just it doesn't make sense in my brain. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. I totally agree.
And then when you talk to people about it and they'll say, well, but this has happened, blah, 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 and then you refute it, show them evidence on
But
how
he's a felon. Shut
right.
the fuck up.
They just hop onto the next talking point without, realizing like, oh, okay, well, he actually explained this properly and gave me an answer. They hop onto the next try to gotcha question to make, to just it just makes no sense, man. And it's like
Mm,
the average American citizen is hurting. You're going to the grocery store, milk is up, all products are up.
right. And
What's
again, and then they just lie about that too. The Democrats, oh, inflation's only 3% this year. No, no, no. It's 25% since you took over.
right? Right. Yeah, but I guess you could just lie and do that, and it's supposed to be okay because nobody's looking for follow-ups or holding people accountable. I guess that's really what it
Well, there's
is.
no, like I said earlier, there's no real journalism. There's no fucking real journalism.
Yeah.
Mike said he's trying to get on the house computer. If it blocks me, he'll get on his phone.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. He sent an email. So guest might be on a little bit late. You know how we try to get the guests on around 1:15, but that's the beauty of the live show. Gracious audience out there. Um, you always laugh at our technical difficulties, so thank you for that.
I'm going to ask Mike if Democrats in Pennsylvania are trying to lessen child predator fucking laws.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, dude, that right there should be enough to get people not only
why?
thrown out of office, but thrown in jail.
I agree.
Yeah.
And people keep voting for it. I'm just like, why? Maybe you don't have kids, or maybe you do have kids, but why the fuck are you voting for a party that's trying to make pedophilia normal?
Right. I don't
And
give.
why are they trying to do that?
Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
maybe they don't have kids. I don't give a fuck, dude. I don't have kids, and I know that that shit's not kosher or cool.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep. It's wild.
it is wild, man. And for a long time, I was chalking it up to, people being, because I guess they say ignorance is bliss and all that stuff. But at some point, your ignorance becomes compliance, and like you need to step it up because you're part of the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
you can no longer be like, oh, well, I'm not really paying attention. And this is what I've heard. I read the headline. No, it's serious enough now to where you actually got to start digging in and doing due diligence because it's clear we're going in a direction that is not palpable and
Oh,
good for all.
exactly. Like, what are you waiting for? You waiting for your kid to be raped by some guy and then he gets a shit sentence because the Democrats pass all these laws saying, "Oh no, we're just lessen the, lessen the penalties for this. It's fine.
Right.
6 months he raped your son. Go ahead, and he's 6 months in jail. It's no problem.
Click him Mike in, dude. He's here.
You're gonna get more vigilantism, I think, going on.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. What are they waiting for? World War III to happen? They're waiting for their fucking neighbors' kids to get raped. Like, what are they waiting on here?
I don't know. It's weird.
Whatever it is, it's no bueno. There he is.
Mm. Hello. How are you?
Hello.
I'm doing well, Chad. Thanks for having me. I apologize for the.
Oh,
Oh, no worries. Oh, you muted. Can't hear you. We heard you for a bit.
yeah. All right.
There we go. Does that
There we
work?
are. Yes, sir. Well,
Got a little technical difficulty. Had to switch to the phone, but we got it working now.
oh, good. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming on here. This is a great honor for us. You're our first official politician, and we're excited about that. And especially
I
being
am
from York
honored. I think
County,
is this your what 58th show?
58th. Yes, that's
Last
correct.
week was Heinz 57. Yeah, I watched a
That's
little
right.
bit of that. I had to get up
Exactly.
to speed.
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Well, if you keep
before
the
you,
expectations low, I hopefully won't disappoint you. But anyway, keep
no,
working your way up the political ladder here.
Mike, we were just going to kind of go over some of your stuff before you came on the show, and you've been on the right side of the coin for a bit now, dude. You're talking about term limits for politicians. You were during the COVID-19 lockdowns. You wanted businesses to stay open and stuff like that. You had the foresight to realize all that stuff and maybe follow scientists and people that were reporting stuff that made sense to you and made sense, economically and for the people and stuff like that. So I want to applaud you for doing that, because we have so many people elected in the office that aren't, that do not have the American people's backs in their, in the forefront. And it seems like you do, dude. So we want to applaud you and say thank you and re-elect Mr. Jones coming up.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. If it's frustrating up here in Harrisburg trying to actually get bills passed into law, and that's not always a bad thing, especially with the Democrats in control. But because it's hard to undo a bad bill, but that part's been frustrating. But yeah, the thing I am most proud of is what you touched on, what we did during the tyrannical, un-American, unconstitutional lockdowns. We did something here in York County that I certainly wasn't alone, but I was the one spearheading it politically. We called it Reopen York. And to your point, about 2 months or so into COVID, it became pretty apparent that these were just bureaucrats up here, literally making things up as they were going along. We had a governor hiding in his basement, Governor Wolf at the time. And it became apparent that we were doing, not only was it totally unconstitutional from a freedom and liberty perspective, so that's first and foremost, telling businesses who can and can't open, who's essential and non-essential, telling people they can or can't. I ran into an elderly woman at the time who just wanted to visit her husband at the graveyard and was afraid she wouldn't be able to do that. So it was totally un-American, but we also realized that we were destroying more lives than we were ever going to save. I'm all for protecting, the elderly and the sick, but we've never, no adversary, be it biological, economical, militarily, has ever been defeated by grown, able-bodied men hiding in their basement, afraid to order carry out. You just can't live that way. You can't run a country that way. So our tagline was reopening saves lives, which I believe it did. And I will tell you, we had approximately 300 businesses. Chad will be familiar with Round the Clock Diner here in York, was the most prominent.
Absolutely.
Was featured on Fox News a number of times. The Saccarellis family demonstrated tremendous courage, but I, along with others, there's a group of about 10 of us from all different walks of life that created Reopen York. And we had about 300 businesses, give or take, that defied the governor's order, stayed open. None of them went to jail. None of them lost their license or closed their doors. And the vast majority of them didn't even pay fines, but you have to stand up and fight. So that's
Right.
certainly one of the biggest accomplishments my 6 years in office.
I was applauding Themi, Saccharillas, and Round the Clock from California here where I was locked down.
Yeah.
At
You
least,
guys had it
unfortunately,
even worse.
yeah.
Very
Well,
quickly,
I'm in Orange
doctorate.
County, so it wasn't as bad as LA.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Orange County is a little better from what I understand, but
Yeah.
I had a doctor at the time, and that was another thing, not to belabor it. I had a number of doctors. I mean, I wasn't just shooting from the hip because, it was a life and death kind of thing. I certainly didn't take the virus. We didn't take that lightly, but again, you have to take measured risk in life. But I had doctors off the record saying, these masks are useless. It's not what they're intended for. And one of them, to your point, said closing down the beaches is exactly the opposite of what you should be doing. People should be getting sunshine, losing some weight, exercising, taking their vitamins. And he had a great statement that you guys will like, but he said, strong people are harder to kill. And, his whole point was this should be a wake up call. But then I would say, well, can you go on Facebook and do an interview with me? And it's like, well, I can't do that because then I might get fired from these big hospital conglomerates. So that's a whole nother issue.
Well, yeah, I mean, you would see a doctor or a healthcare professional or, someone that was way smarter than me coming out and giving a counterpoint to some of these lockdown policies and the masks and all this stuff. And those people were immediately censored. And I knew they're right. They're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Because
exactly
it's not
right.
going with it's not going with the government's, here's what we need to do. Here's what we need to do. We're doing this because of this. It's science. And these people will be censored right up. I just watched that happen real time the whole time. Because when I first heard about COVID, I started finding is whatever I can on mortality rates on it, just going on the internet, searching whatever I could find. And I could tell that this it's not killing people. Like if it was killing like 20% of people, it would be scary as hell.
Right.
But it was killing 0.001% was the death rate. And the thing about it is like from 2019 to 2020, the overall death rates between those 2 years did not fluctuate. So you didn't lose more people in 2020 than you lost in 2019. It was all comorbidities and people that were going to die anyway, unfortunately. So it was just wild to watch. It's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of it sorry to interrupt you, Jay. For your viewers, you're familiar again, being, we're both from York, which as I'm sure you've told people, about an hour north of Baltimore. But right to our east is Lancaster County, famous for the Pennsylvania Dutch or the Amish. We have a good many Amish in the southern part of York County now as well. But where that's relevant, and we had some Senate hearings. I'm in the House, but there was a couple of the senators, and they invited me over. It was, Oh, geez, everybody now I know his name almost like my own. But anyways, there's a prominent doctor, just brilliant, and a couple others. And the point being that this Amish community, and I actually at the time had visited an Amish leader in his home, and he was making the point at the time. He said, you know, if it, to keep the point being, this is an isolated community, probably 30, 40,000 people. To my knowledge, virtually none of whom wore masks, virtually none of whom were vaccinated. And as he said, now I will say they're healthier than your average individual because they're out there working. And these are the folks that, don't typically, generally don't use electricity or modern machinery.
And they're eating the
Um,
food they produce, not getting
Correct. And it's healthy food. I
crappy.
saw you guys
Yeah.
talking about that last week, and amen to
Hmm.
that. But the point was, I'm told it was virtually impossible to find anybody in the Amish community that had died from COVID. There were one or two that may have and or who may have died with COVID, to your point, two different things. And as this gentleman said, if this stuff is all accurate, not saying COVID wasn't real, but he was saying, the mask and all of these requirements. He said, a third of, I remember his exact words. He goes, a quarter of us should be in the grave, because they went about their business. The other thing, I don't know if you guys have delved into, and I don't claim to be an expert on it. Um, but you look at all of the vaccines that we are pumping into kids at a very young age.
I know this well.
I'm not necessarily in
Yeah.
the extremists. There's some people that are in the totally anti-vax camp. I'm not smart enough to have a strong opinion on the specifics, but if you look at the list, I could send it to you if you're interested. But it's like 1960 or 80, I forget what it was. The list of childhood vaccines is like this. 20 years later, it's like this. Now it's like huge. And common sense says, how much stuff do we need to pump in, to a 10-pound child that quickly? And again, I'm not saying you throw it all out, but it seems very excessive, and there seems to be ties to autism and that kind of thing. But bottom line was, COVID really separated the men from the boys, the wheat from the chaff, and we kind of saw, who the real patriots were, and who was willing to actually fight for freedom and liberty. And unfortunately, it was a disappointingly low number, but they were out there, and I met a lot of great people through that I never would have met otherwise.
Yeah,
Well,
and by the way, back to I'm very, very familiar with childhood vaccines. My ex and I were on top of that when we had our son back in 2009, and all over that. I mean, yeah, baby comes out of the womb, they want to pump him with a hepatitis B vaccine. That's sexually transmitted. It's sexually transmitted. At 6 months, they want to give them a hepatitis B vaccine. We were like, no.
Chicken pox is another one. I think we all survived chicken pox pretty well. And
measles too, for that matter.
The quantities of it at such a small age.
That's 79 now. 79 vaccines by the time they're 18. That includes flu vaccines, which I would never take. But yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. It's insane.
It's so easy now to follow the data and use common sense and to try and to actually talk about these things. But at the time you were taking a stand on this, Mike, it wasn't so easy to do so. It's like it's really refreshing to realize that we do have politicians that weren't afraid to do that and really put their credibility on the line to do the right thing for the people. It's insane that so many people didn't do that and wanted to just follow the narrative and not really follow common sense things that the data was showing. So it's like the fact that we do have people like you out there it feels good, because we see so many politicians that don't have the American people's backs and are just trying to fend for themselves and do what is best for them and stuff like that. So really got to applaud you for handling the situation the way you did, man.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I remember you reminded me indirectly, brought to mind a couple of articles in the local paper at the time. I remember the editorial board saying, don't listen to Mike Jones, and definitely, being villainized. But that's, that goes to the territory. One thing I have found, guys, is, and I'm certainly not equating the two, but many of us, I'm guessing you two, although I don't know your exact backgrounds, but certainly myself, most Americans have never put on the uniform, much less faced, actual combat. And obviously can't say enough about those that have. I'm 55 years old. I've lived a pretty pretty charmed life as an American. People deal with individual tragedies, but most of us have had it pretty darn good. We've never really seen war, except for the aforementioned guys that have. We've never dealt with adverse poverty. We've been pretty pampered here. No real sacrifice. And what I concluded somewhere along the way back in those a few years back was this is. And again, I'm not equating it to taking bullets. Let me be very clear. But
Yep.
this is, rather than wringing my hands and lamenting all of these things, this is an opportunity for me in my small way to actually fight for my country. And rather than, and I learned that it's kind of fun to fight. And especially for a guy like myself that hasn't actually fought in combat, it's like, let's quit complaining about it and look at it as a true honor and privilege to stand up and fight for our country in whatever way we can. We all have a voice. We've got everybody has different strengths. In my case, I've got a big mouth. But and just like you guys are doing with your podcast. And what I tell people is, look, we might win, we might lose, but I'm going to look myself in the eye and look myself in the mirror and look my kids and grandkids in the eye and let them know that I did everything I could. If we either won or we went down fighting, one or the other, but I can live with both.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like you said, this is one of the reasons we started the podcast, to kind of give back in our little way. I did not serve. I have immense respect for the military, and I'm a big military fan. I love all the equipment and all the stuff. I know jets and ships and all that stuff. But anyway, we don't need to get into that. But yeah, I feel the same way. Like you're doing it on a different level with being a state representative. We started the podcast to do kind of give back and let people know what's going on and try to open eyes, basically.
Yeah. So it just
I appreciate you doing it.
And it evolved into this because we realized so many people didn't have a voice and didn't have say during the time when we were trying to do this and stuff like that. And we were like, we got nothing to lose, but we could maybe raise some awareness and shed some light onto some of these things. So, trying to fight the good fight. But, for somebody like you that's in office and voted into, we were looking at your Wikipedia page, sir, and it seems like you at one point were on the Democratic side of things, and now you switched over to Republican somewhere along the line. Is that true?
No, that is not accurate. But no, I've been a lifelong Republican. I've done a couple things, mainly on criminal justice reform, that have been bipartisan, working with a couple Democrat colleagues from Philadelphia. But no, I've been a pretty staunch conservative most of my life. I was in business most of my career. And so, unfortunately, a lot of the issue with politics is, for many people, it's the best job they'll ever have. And they're protecting the job rather than doing the job. And that was never how it was intended, and especially here in Pennsylvania, the Keystone State with Ben Franklin and, shoot, who's the guy I'm trying to think of? Who was the one that fought slavery in the Lincoln movie? In any event, it'll come to Thaddeus Stevens and so many great Americans. It was intended for, whether it's business people, military people, bankers, lawyers, hopefully not too many of them, but no, anyway, would go to Harrisburg in this case, or Washington, make law, go home and go back to work. It was never intended to be a career. And that's part of the problem, is a lot of people believe the right things. Some of them aren't quite as conservative as they advertise, but a lot of them, the problem I've seen, I don't mind people who disagree with me. Sure. I'm staunchly pro-life. My wife and I adopted 4 children, but there's room under the Republican tent for pro-choice. It's a big tent, as Reagan said. I may not agree with you on everything. I might not write you a check, but we need to be a big tent. By the way, we need to do a much better job, and I think we're making inroads, thanks in large part to Trump, with the Black and Latino communities, many of whom are Republican and don't realize it. But the point is, what irritates me is not that people don't agree with me. I think the problem is, we've lost the art of cordial but sometimes tense, fierce and intense debate. It's not about agreeing. It's being able to disagree passionately but civilly. And also what's really irritating is a lot of these folks believe the right things, but they lack the courage of their conviction to act upon it. COVID was a great example of that.
Mhm.
Sure.
Hey, that's great stuff you're doing. We agree. You want to come join me? Well, no, I don't think we want to do that. And you see that certain bills and so forth, they believe one thing and vote another, or just don't even put it up for a vote. They like to avoid tough votes and that sort of thing because it's
Oh
about
yeah.
reelection.
Well, now
Yeah.
and now you have the Democrats basically doing lawfare on their opponents. I mean, they did it famously to Trump on a grand
Yes.
scale, but they're
Yes.
doing it to the everyday guy too, the person that shows up to the school board meeting, and now they're being labeled as domestic terrorists because they don't agree with the freaking school board. It's like, what's going on in this country? I mean, it's happening on a local level too, the lawfare. I mean, I know a gentleman that's being, you know, unfairly prosecuted
I
for
might
a
know
bunch
that
of
guy.
bullshit. Yeah. And it's literally lawfare it's just wild to watch how the justice, especially the U.S. Justice Department now goes after any political enemies. It is friggin' nuts. They're doing raids on Catholic priests' friggin' houses with guns, and because they did a sit-in at an abortion clinic. Like, what is going on? Is that happening like to your point on kind of the state level in Pennsylvania? Have you noticed any of that?
There's certainly some examples of that. I mean, you're correct. I mean, this is no longer Republican and Democrat who are good American loving people who just disagree on some things.
Right.
Uh, these, in many cases, on the left are socialist. They're not Democrats, and actually, many of the reasonable Democrats have been pushed out in
Hmm.
primaries by socialists. They're not worried about general elections in some of these areas, but they're being attacked from the left. It's mind-boggling to me how you can look at what, in my mind, and I've been blessed not to the extent you did, Chad, but I was blessed through business to travel. Significant amount of international travel around the world,
Sure.
and even some of the best countries in the world, nothing, there is no close second to America. you know
Nope.
and it's the greatest, and why you want to change it. I'm not talking about improving or evolving. We want to mimic countries who are inferior to us, the systems that are inferior. I mean, it's crazy. And what you see, so to your point, you certainly see that in some of the bigger Democrat controlled cities. We've got a district attorney over in Philadelphia. We tried to impeach him, who just chooses not to enforce many of the laws. To your
Fucking
point,
crazy.
there's all kinds between the media and weaponizing the legal system, and attorney generals, deciding who they're going to prosecute and not. They have total disregard for the Constitution. It's all about clinging to power. They totally violated the Constitution. Here we have our big problem here is the state Supreme Court. So through redistricting, we went from 113 to 90 majority down to a one-seat minority in the House, almost exclusively based on how they drew the maps, which any reasonable individual would see was a blatant violation of the state constitution, how they drew those maps. So there's another example. It's the ends justify the means, Chad. If the Constitution is helpful for them, they'll use it. If not,
Oh yeah.
they will ignore it. Legislating from the bench is one of the single biggest threats to our republic that few people talk about. And lastly, here on a state scale, we should be an economic powerhouse. Pennsylvania exports far more energy than we produce. Well, we might have potholes, but we have a lot of roads. We have fantastic. I used to be in the supply chain world, the company I ran. We have great logistics. We're located near a huge population centers. We've got ports. We've got everything. We've got some of the most diverse industry in the country. We've got skilled machinists in places like here in York. Yet we are consistently, 38th, oftentimes 45th, 46th in economic development
Wow.
because of these socialistic policies. The tax policy is terrible. The regulatory, you talk about lawfare. I've got a farmer here who is being currently just totally harassed by the Department of Environmental Protection. He literally, I won't bore you with the details, but the
Yeah.
gist of it was he had a quote wetland that wasn't staying wet. It was nothing but a big mosquito haven. So he planted about a third of an acre, 1/3 of an acre. It's just a piece of his backyard with pristine grass.
Hmm.
And they now want to take 2.5 acres of his land and fine him and impose other fees and legal cost and excavation. It's going to cost him $400,000 or more, maybe $500,000 for planting grass, not paving it, not dumping motor oil, for planting pristine grass in his backyard, because these bureaucrats have so much power to lord over people. And it's like they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and they'll do whatever they need to do to stay in power. So we were growing smaller, older, and poorer here in Pennsylvania, literally by the day, and nobody seems to care and realize we're going to be in a real crisis, particularly taking care of our elderly as the baby boomers continue to age and live longer than ever. So sorry for the long answer,
That's
but
all right.
it's really a big problem.
Well, you touched on the environment and these environmental protection agencies, and they go after the law-abiding citizens that have some little, snafu like that farmer. Yet,
Right.
especially like in Los Angeles, I watched this whole report where they're talking about with the homeless situation there. They have all these RVs and tents and all this shit set up, right? And the RVs literally are taking their sewage, they're shitting and pissing in the RV. They're just running a tube right into the sewer that goes right to the ocean. They don't say anything about that. If a company or a law-abiding citizen, like farmers, for instance, for runoff, they'll go after them, but they won't go after these homeless people and clean this up where they're letting raw sewage go right into the pristine ocean in California, where they're all about the environment and climate change and all these crazy things, but like you'll just let the homeless people just shit into the ocean, but there's no problem. Don't worry about it.
It's do as they say, not as they do. In that case, if those are prospective donors for that, or not donors, voters in that case for them. Another great example. I just did a really fascinating tour a few days ago of the I don't even know what you would call it. It's kind of like an independent entity. It's not a private business per se, but it manages the whole power grid here in the Northeast, which in and of itself, you guys would find that fascinating. But a lot of these, think about this, the cost of energy. Most of these people that are yelling for green energy, much of which cannot compete. It's one thing if it was competitive, now nuclear is green, but I'm talking wind, which is pretty much a joke. And solar is not a whole lot better. Who is it that wants this clean air? It's not poor people. It's the wealthy elites, most of whom don't have to deal with any of this in their backyard. You talk about putting windmills like they did a number of years ago in Martha's Vineyard, or a bunch of solar panels, in somebody's, that's going to interrupt their view. Oh, well, that's a different story, right? Then they've got a problem with it. The same thing with energy cost, and I was thinking just the other day, between most poor people are, for all intents and purposes, confined to about a 30-40 mile radius of their home. Yes, they could spring for a vacation, once a year. But think about it. Between the cost of gas, and certainly here in Pennsylvania where we live, the cost of tolls, a 400 or 500 mile trip, you want to go out to Ohio, go to Cedar Point Amusement Park as an example, a pretty modest vacation, come back to come back here to York. You're going to spend many hundreds of dollars between gas and tolls on that trip. It's poor people that pay the price for some of these kind of feel-good initiatives. If gas goes up 50 cents a gallon on guys like us, we don't like it, but it's not the end of the world. But a lot of these people are, not literally, but they're effectively almost confined to a 50, 100-mile radius of where they live. It's that expensive when you're on a tight budget, but it's mostly, they're not the ones clamoring for this. It's the wealthy elites who don't, that are hidden behind their gated community and hidden behind their keyboard, these keyboard warriors.
Well, they all have walls around them, and they're all flying their private jets wherever they want to go.
Exactly.
And they're yelling at you for, you got to have an electric car, and you can't eat meat, and you can't grow your own food because that's bad for the environment. But I'm going to fly my private jet to, Davos and whatever the fuck else I need to go.
Yeah,
hypocrisy.
It's wild.
Screw the young kids over there in Africa digging into mines for the lithium, for the batteries, and all of that. These people that say they care about poor people, my experience has been that the conservatives and a lot in the Christian community in particular do a lot more for the needy than most of these on the left. I'm not saying down to a person by any stretch, but there's
Sure.
good and bad on each side. But a lot of this is nothing but pointing fingers and blaming other people. Most of these people rarely lift a finger to inconvenience themselves. Like you said, they're telling us about saving the environment, while they're flying in on their jet or driving in their limo that gets 3 miles to the gallon to tell us about it.
Exactly.
But it's crazy that, you could just say, oh, I am for the poor people, but everything I do and bills I put are not for the poor people. So you can say
Exactly.
it and
It's all
not,
talking. It's all lip service.
yeah. But it's just like, and it's shame on us though for not being wise. It's shame on for the people doing it, but it's also shame on us now for putting up with it so long and still electing these same people. It's like, we can't complain about it and then keep electing them, and because nothing gets done that way. So it's like we can't just have people saying things, doing something else, and then complaining about it and keep voting them in, because it's like that's that cycle that never ends, and we keep getting this swamp of people that we have that don't have our backs.
Yeah.
It's
And a lot of people aren't bold enough, particularly on the Republican side, to speak up and come out against it. Why aren't, the Democrats take the black vote and to a large extent the Hispanic vote for granted, but we ignore them many times. Don't ignore it. We have a winning message, but you got to deliver that message. You got to be bold,
Right.
And that's a lot of the reason Trump is making some inroads there. Is I wish he would push it even harder than he did. But it used to be most Republican candidates for president would go give one feel good speech down to the NAACP, kid glove them, and nobody's going to vote for him. Trump,
Right.
if you remember, was that 6-8 years ago, said, what do you have to lose? And he actually has gone. I think he should go after it even stronger and call them out for a lot of this hypocrisy. But he doesn't always deliver it as gracefully as some might want him to, but he talks to real people and he's produced real results. And I think I pray that people are starting to see through it, because if we lose this election, I don't see how see how we survive much longer.
Elon was just on Tucker talking about that. If we lose this election, they're going to naturalize all those millions and millions and millions of friggin' people they left in over the border with the border czar, and
Yep.
and then they're going to have a majority. They're going to have the votes to basically drown out Republicans forever.
Yeah.
Well, and they just keep buying votes. When you got 50 some percent, almost, when you get to a point, you got 50% or more that are relying on the government through various welfare programs. And I use that. And there's plenty of corporate welfare that needs to end too. And I'm not talking about helping the poorest of the poor and the weakest of the. We're wealthy enough. We help the people that need it, but they're buying votes. I mean, when your national debt equals your GDP, and you're talking about, well, let's just give people $25,000 to buy a home, or let's pay off their college debt.
Right.
Where does that money, by definition, doesn't exist? All you can do is print it.
Right.
But it's literally buying votes with money that we don't have. But again, it's all about retaining power.
Yeah, and then in Biden's case, he just keeps saying they're going to pay for these student debts, but and the Supreme Court, I think it was twice now, they've ruled against it and said that's illegal.
Yeah.
You can't do that, and he just ignores it.
Yeah.
And then it's like wild to watch the Democrats just ignore the Supreme Court, and they're like, yeah, we got to pack the Supreme Court, we got to put more people in. It's like it's just mind-boggling to watch them.
It's a great example. It's just like the Constitution. I mean, like I said earlier, if it doesn't say what they want it to say, they ignore it. They can't win elections here in Pennsylvania, so they redraw the maps. It's the ends justify the means. And your point on the Supreme Court is a great example. I'm dumbfounded by that. To your point, well, we're just going to ignore what they said. I mean,
if the Republicans did that,
insane.
If Trump's, for instance, did that, just ignore the Supreme Court, you would never hear the freaking end of it in the MSM. They were covered ad nauseum. He's defying the Supreme Court. He's a dictator. Blah blah blah. That's all you would hear. But Biden does it, no problem. No problem.
Well, you guys know the Edmund Burke quote: "All that's necessary for evil to triumph is enough good men to do nothing." And that's what happens, particularly on the conservative side. We're not going to lose our nation because the other side has a winning message or that they're stronger than we are. We're going to lose it because of good men and women doing nothing. And it only takes something like 10% of the people dedicated to the cause, which you have about 10% radicals that can change an entire nation. I mean, that's like just fact. And if we don't start standing up and fighting, we're going to have, it's like, death by 1,000 cuts. It's like a socialist blitzkrieg coming at us. And one thing about them, they do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah, man.
They
we're
do
sitting
that.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that interview with the Russian KGB officer back in the 80s talking about how they were going to infiltrate all the colleges and learning institutions, and basically that's how they were going to, bring in socialism and
I
communism?
believe so. I believe so. I know Khrushchev, going way back before our times, said that he would destroy America from within.
From
And I
within,
think it
yeah.
was in a similar
Wow.
vein to, yeah,
Yeah.
which is what we're seeing. We forfeited uh, the colleges and universities, and now to some extent the high schools. We've been reclaiming a lot of school boards here in York. It was just another.
Good.
I'm still making mischief here, by the way. So
Good. You
our thing
should.
we've been doing the last few years is we realize these school boards have. It's a great place for liberals to get a toehold in a conservative communities.
Yep.
So next thing you know, it's boys and girls bathrooms. And I'm not villainizing those kids, by the way. They're not the enemy.
No.
But we can protect our girls in sports and pornographic material. Again, they'll call it book bans and they call you
Oh,
names. It's
yes.
not. It's some of this is blatant pornography that we would go to jail
Right.
for by even
Sure.
possessing, and they want to put it in middle school libraries.
Right.
But they control a lot of the narrative with the media. And so there's some of that going on here as we speak, when what it really is, banning mascots was another one of them. So
Mhm.
they, we've
Well,
been
they just
pushing
passed
back
a law
on
in
that trend.
California. They just passed a law in California where they can't have any mascots that have anything to do with Native Americans now. They just can't even mention it. Can't have
Yeah,
mascots
that's
named
what
there.
this was. This was
Freaking
the
stupid.
Susquehannock Warriors. Sorry to
Right.
interrupt you. Yeah,
That's all right.
Susquehanna. Now we've got that. We that was one of the school boards we reclaimed. I think they're bringing something back there, and it was a very respectful, historic kind of, or it was a very respectful kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's just, so then they're talking about it's. I'm telling you, we're living in some dark times here. I
Well,
mean,
we were
again,
talking
there's
about,
lots of room for disagreement, but some of this is pure evil and
oh
purely
yeah,
and totally American. Yeah.
we were talking about this before you got on, about how it seems like you're talking about pornography in the books and in the schools, right? And if somebody gets up and reads those books to the school board members, they're like, we can't say this in here. It's like, this
Correct.
is the
Yeah.
books that are in your schools that kids have access to. And I guess my point is, we were talking about how the left seems to be normalizing pedophilia and pornography to kids. Like, is that kind of happening? Like, are they trying to pass laws, the Democrats in Pennsylvania, like to lessen the, penalties and stuff for pedophilia and, and just children in general? Like,
Conduct with kids, yeah.
yeah. Are
Yeah.
you
So they
noticing
won't.
that in Pennsylvania? Because it seems to be happening
Luckily,
everywhere
we
else.
have a Republican Senate. Pennsylvania is the only state, which is kind of shocking and kind of troubling in a way. We're the only state with divided government. I mean, I'd prefer it be Republican across the board,
Yeah.
Sure.
but we have a Democrat governor, the slimmest of majorities in the House, and then but we have a Republican Senate. So they've been a great backstop from any kind of nonsense. There's
That's
to
good.
answer your see that's another interesting point. So what they will do is they will not they would they they will not come out. They're savvy enough to not run a bill that says let's allow all pornographic material in schools.
Hmm.
So what they'll do is they'll put it under the guise of LGBT or
Of
trans,
course.
Right.
that we're
Right.
protecting people.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But what it is it's an enabler for this. So then when we vote against it and speak out against it,
Then
we
you're
had a bill
bigots.
here, House Bill 300, then we're the bigots.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
so it's not, look, nobody wants LGBT or trans kids being beat up or bullied or
Of
No,
discriminated
course not.
against. I mean, I'll go to the mat for that. I'd rather take a beating myself than see that happen to a child. But
absolutely.
that's not what it is. You're talking about irreversible, uh, anything from hormone treatments to irreversible surgeries on minor children when the human brain isn't even fully developed until 25, 26 years old. So this is child abuse. It is perverse, is what it is. But there again, people, what we need to be doing is calling it out as such on our
Yeah.
end, rather than sitting here saying, well, we're not bigots. Screw it. You call me whatever name you want. You're a freaking pervert, is what you are.
Yeah, man.
You're a child abuser.
And you're damaging
That's what
children.
this is.
Yeah.
That's what this is. And but we don't have enough people bold enough to stand up and say it. We're constantly on defense as conservatives, and we need to go on the offense and call this out for what it is. But that's the tactic they will use. And if you can't handle being called a name, any grown man in general, shame on you. I can't
Sure.
stand a mentally weak man. I'm not talking physically.
yeah.
I'm not that strong myself, but I cannot stand it, and much less an elected official or business person or whatever that has been so blessed, to not have the courage to stand up and speak, especially the older we get. What do we have to lose? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like I said earlier,
Mike,
Well,
did you realize
let's start fighting for something. We
Yeah,
never had to
exactly.
take a bullet. You
Right.
know?
Yeah, the
Mike,
United
did you
States is the
realize
outlier now on the childhood trans thing too. Like they're all the other countries that were on that for a little while have now seemed to ban doing anything for any permanent damage to kids when they want to become trans.
Yes.
It's like be a trans kid when you turn 18, then you can have if you want to get surgeries and permanently alter yourself, go ahead, do that. But before that, no.
right? Mike, I got a quick question, man. Did you realize what an uphill battle you had to fight going into politics? Like, did you realize what this was going to entail when you signed up for this?
I'll try to give you the quick. So I had left. I was worked at and was president of a great company there in it was called St. Ange Company in York, Pennsylvania, and they've continued to flourish without me. But it was a company I never should have been hired at in the first place. Way back in '94, I ended up becoming president of when I was about 36, and did that for 11 years, and then my retired from there in 17. My partners decided my run had been long enough. But I went home and told my wife at the time, I said, well, it looks like we're going to have a lot more time to spend together, because I used to, work long hours and travel. To which she said, yeah, I guess. So her utter lack of enthusiasm at the prospect of spending
Oh
more
my.
time with me told me I got to get some kind of a job. But very quickly, what happened was, I attended a political event for a guy from York County named Scott Wagner, another great American who was
No,
running for
Scott, yeah.
governor at the time. He had been, you would know. So he had been he's a very successful business guy, whole nother echelon above what I accomplished. But in any event, Scott was a state senator, the only state senator in history in Pennsylvania to win as a write-in, which was a whole nother interesting story 4 years prior. But he decided to run for governor. So he gave up his state Senate seat. My predecessor, a lady named Kristen Phillips Hill, ran for his Senate seat, and she's still in the Senate doing a great job. And that freed up her rep seat. And I, at the time, in parallel to that, I went to an event. We're both in the same business group, Scott and I. He hosted an event at the Capitol, and he had a gentleman speak who had been up here 30 years. And I referenced this line earlier, but he said, you need to realize, for the vast majority of people up here, not saying they're not smart or that they're not hardworking. I mean, some more than others, of course. But he said, for the vast majority of people up here, this is the best job they'll ever have. And we need more guys like Scott Wagner that don't need to be here, meaning business people that don't need the job.
Right.
And that really motivated me to run. I had decided to run for school board in Dallastown here, Chad, where I went to school and our kids grew up. So I was on school board at the time just because they kind of had an opening and somebody asked me to do it. So I actually served in both capacities. I then won the state rep race, served in both capacities for about a year, and then I stepped off the school board. And so it's been frustrating at times. I went from leading a group of 120 people to being low man on the poll in a group of about 110 called the Republican Caucus. So it was certainly humbling, but it's frustrating because it's just so hard to get meaningful things done. And not everything from business translates, but leadership is kind of leadership, and good policy. Sometimes it's self-evident, particularly on, like we were talking earlier, tax and regulatory policy that's crippling our small businesses. So that's been frustrating. The part that has been rewarding was like we talked about earlier, reopen and other efforts, some of these things we've been doing with school boards and other things where I can use the platform and work more in an executive type role, albeit on a small local scale, where it does give me a voice that I've been blessed to be able to use. You know, God's put me in a position where I try not to be, I'm passionate and opinionated. I try to be courageous, but I also try not to be arrogant. You know, I recognize I don't. There's a lot of things I don't know. I try to encourage people to critique me. You don't get better by people just telling you what you want to hear. So it really is. Especially when you step foot in the beautiful Capitol building up here, it really is kind of it is an honor, not elevating politicians, but like in this case, just the whole history of Pennsylvania and how, you know, critical it was, and you know, again at a smaller level, but being able to serve, you know, the greatest country in the world, and it is an honor representing, in my case, you know, over 60 some thousand people.
Rock on.
And we appreciate you.
We absolutely do. Are you starting to, because I mean, I think we're starting to realize though, businessmen are some of the best politicians. Like if you could run a successful business, it probably translate over into government as well. Because you can't run, like you were saying earlier, the budget on a deficit and expect to make money and all that jazz. So a lot of the, I guess, ideas that go into business and running a successful one kind of do go into being a politician and running the government. You see that with President Trump. I mean, a very successful businessman, and then happened to be one of the best leaders of the free world.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what he did. I mean, I will tell you, I have learned there is a place for some lawyers, for example, some legal minds that, you know, in my case, I love to learn. But I'm not a voracious reader. Okay. So I'm not going to be the one that reads through 30 pages of every given bill and, you know, sort of validates the constitutionality of some of these. So I've seen, you know, where there's value there. There's value in having some policy wonks that really dig into a lot of this, some accountant types. But what I'm not a fan, personally, I would probably raise the age to run for office up to more like 35 instead of 21 that we have here, because a lot of that's kind of outdated when life expectancies were a lot shorter. But I like
Right.
people that at least have had some meaningful life experience. I think business translates better than the rest, but certainly some military experience is good to have up here. People that have farmed, which they are the epitome of business people, to be clear.
Oh, yeah.
Women that have raised, one or two of my colleagues have raised 8 children. There's a lot to
Wow.
be learned from them. Okay. So I do like a mix, but I will say that business translates probably better than any other thing. And if you look at Trump, I never thought we would see Reagan's equal. I just loved Ronald Reagan. Trump in 4 years with his own party working against him and being totally out of his element is the best president of my lifetime. And I am just, I'm in awe. I wish you could temper him with 20 or 30% Reagan, then you'd have probably the perfect, if he was a little more presidential at times. But he is, what he accomplished in 4 years, he is undeterred is the word that I use. And that's what I've been so motivated by him. He is literally undeterred, no matter what's said about him, what happens to him. You know, trying to take his life. It is remarkable. And it shows you what leadership really looks like and can accomplish, even if it's not always as graceful as we might like. When you're undeterred and courageous and committed, you can get a lot of stuff done.
Well, maybe you don't raise
100%.
the age from 21 to 35, but maybe you have some sort of competency test or something.
Yeah.
You know, there could be brilliant 21-year-olds that could to handle the job, but I mean, and then there could be people age 35 that, you know, have the life experience, but they're just not competent upstairs. So it's like there's got to be some way to you know, prove that you could actually handle this job and you know.
Well,
that would be even better yet. And to be clear, I learned from young people. I had young people managing my campaigns. It's not a knock on young people. I just think and maybe I'm just getting old, but I can get advice from anybody, is how I put it. But when I seek counsel, it is typically from older, successful men that I can. And you're 100% correct. It's more about the individual. We've got some exceptional young legislators, but I do think there's just a lot for having some life experience, not just academic.
For sure.
The other thing is, at that age, they can easily be manipulated up here. You all of a sudden you're called the honorable this, the honorable that. You got a parking space, you got a couple offices, you got 3 or 4 staff. You think and you can just hang around for 10 or 12 years and wait to become a chairman of a committee.
Right.
So I sort of prefer people a little bit older that are coming up here more as with a service mindset than a career. But
Well,
to your point, there's plenty of young, great legislators for
well,
sure.
and to your point earlier, term limits would help to
Yes.
nullify a lot of this. You get 6, 8 years, whatever it is, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Got to
Yeah.
bring in someone
Actually, you'll
else.
get a kick out of this. My freshman year, I was only been in office. There was another guy. He kind of beat me to the punch, so we collaborated on another freshman, younger guy, Andrew Lewis. We were only up here a month, maybe 2, and we introduced the term limits bill right out of the gate.
Nice.
That must have been
But and I
unpopular.
think there's some great, yeah, yeah. So I agree completely. Again, it should not be a career. I'm going to take another bite at that apple. It's an uphill battle, but there's a little twist I want to put on it that might help us get some votes on it.
I was going to say, like, how do you have to have the body that does not have term limits vote for term limits?
Right,
It's like,
right.
how do you, yeah.
Well, that's one reason, Chad, there's a big push for this Constitution of States, which they or Convention of States, where
Convention of
they
States. Yeah, I
want.
was going to bring that up
Yeah.
too about that. That's at a
I'm
federal
torn
level,
on
but yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The risk there. Okay, so the good news is, if it's as advertised, their scope is limited to Balanced Budget Act and term limits, both of which
Mhm.
you can imagine I would strongly support.
Yeah.
The problem is, A, it assumes that you're going to get good delegates going to it who sort of vote the right way, and B, the big single push against it is that it could somehow open the gate to revisiting the Second Amendment.
Mm.
And while there's lots of assurances that wouldn't happen, that's a risk that many of us are really reluctant to take. So I really am torn on it, because one of the as you I end a lot of these, one of the takeaways on a lot of the conversations like we're having here is never, ever, ever give up your guns.
Right.
Yeah.
That is the amendment, as you guys know, that guarantees all the others. So my take on term limits, we did some of this with the bill we tried. One is, you're going to have to grandfather the people that are already in office. Now, we
Right.
would be subject to it, but the clock wouldn't start ticking until the bill passes. So that's
Right.
one thing you do. Otherwise, it's totally dead on arrival. The big one that we haven't really tried that I want to do, and then we had some other things. Another argument is, well, people should be able to vote for who they want. So we had it that if you step down for a term or you lost an election, then you could run again and reset the clock. The reality is, very, very few people. That would break the cycle of incumbency, because incumbents have a lot of advantages on fundraising
Sure.
and getting bills passed. So it would break that cycle, and it's very difficult to actually lose or step away and come back. The thing that I want to do that I have not seen tried in Pennsylvania, and I think it's pretty common, we serve 2-year terms in the House. The Senate serves 4. What I would do is extend the 2-year to a 4-year term, extend the Senate from 4 to 6, and then you would have a 12-year cap. So it'd either be 2 terms in the Senate or 3 in the House.
Nice.
And the reason I think that could get a lot of votes is that politicians hate running for office. They hate campaigning. And to tell you the truth, I think that people would get a better legislator. I mean, it sounds a little self-serving, but A, you're getting term limits in exchange for it. But B, a lot of these folks, we say it's a 2-year term, but you're sworn in January. You're literally getting signatures to get on the ballot for the next election the following February. So
Wow.
within 13 months,
Crazy.
and for some of the folks in these tough purple districts, a guy like me would probably never win. They've got to campaign and fundraise year round. They're always, any votes they take, they're always looking to the ballot box and the polls. And it's good to be accountable to your voters, don't get me wrong. But if we had a 4-year term, I think you could see more things, more substantive, courageous kind of things getting done, as opposed to folks that are just constantly thinking reelection.
And less money wasted on campaigns,
Yes. Amen to
Exactly.
that. Much less money wasted on campaigns. Yep.
Mike, real
Great
quick
point.
before we let you go, because I know you have a lot of things to do. You're a busy man and stuff like that. But why would term limits possibly affect the Second Amendment? I wasn't clear on that.
No, Convention of States.
Yeah, the Convention of States would. Yeah. So it would be a limit. What they call it is a limited constitution. There, believe it or not, and I don't know as much of the history as I should, but Pennsylvania had at the state level had, and sometimes you'll see another term used. It says there's Convention of States, and then there's also a, what do they call, it's not a constitutional convention, but they actually did that in the 60s in Pennsylvania, where they brought delegates together. I'm not sure the exact process for how you determine who the delegates are, but yeah, it's a, what they call it is a limited convention of states, where they would be able to basically amend as I understand it, amend the Constitution to address balanced budget and term limits. I believe that's the only two issues. Our concern is that in so doing, is there a potential that, depending on who shows up and how the procedures work, that it could get opened up to start addressing other things, specifically the Second Amendment. And whether that concern, that fear is legitimate, is highly debated. But I don't want to risk that one either. So, so that's it's a tricky, it's kind of a tricky issue, because I admire the intentions, but I'm not so sure about the vehicle, the actual implementation of it. And keep in mind, we do have an amendment process. It's, it should not be easy to amend the Constitution. Sometimes we like that, sometimes we don't, but there's a reason the founding fathers made it difficult. So
I was going to say, if you're thinking about that, then the left is thinking about it.
Oh yeah.
You should bring the Second Amendment. I mean, yes.
That's the funny thing is it does sort of work under the premise that we're just going to have conservatives only showing up doing what conservatives want to do, and the left is going to somehow sit idly by and watch it happen. So that's where you get into the challenge.
Gotcha. Mr. Jones, so do you want to direct people anywhere to go? Are you coming up for re-election this November?
I am coming up for re-election. You can find me on Facebook at State Representative Mike Jones. I am sitting in the state capitol, so I cannot direct you to my fundraising efforts or anything like that. But you could, you can find my state representative pages there. I'm pretty easy to find. World's most boring name. I am up for election this year. Fortunately, I am unopposed in November. Next year, previous years have been different, and next time could be different. We've actually got a interesting candidate running here, Chad, in the city of York, a very unconventional Republican, relatively younger than me, young lady, a Latino lady, Jasmine Rivera, single mom, auto mechanic, small business owner, 3 children. And she's an underdog, but it's a very interesting race, and it's the kind of candidate that we as Republicans need to be putting forward as we try to reach, some of the different communities that we haven't traditionally done as well with. So
I saw her signs when I was in York last time, which is about 2 months ago, month and a half at this point. But she running for city council, or what's
she's running for state rep, like myself.
Oh, state rep. Okay,
against the Democrat incumbent.
Got it.
So it's interesting race. The numbers heavily favor the Democrat, but she appeals to a number of demographics that your typical Republican may not traditionally appeal to. So.
Well, I saw in your Wikipedia, which is not always correct, but that you
I'm curious about the Democrat thing. I don't know where that would have come from, but
yeah, it says that you.
I tell people I give you enough legitimate things to critique. You don't have to make things up. No.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. In 2017, it says lists you as a Democratic Mike Jones for the.
Was that for school board?
Yes.
I cross-filed. I'm sorry, I cross-filed for that. That is true.
Okay, got it.
That is true. In 17, I won the Democrat and Republican nomination for school board. I forgot about that. So my apologies.
That's all right.
But I was never a Democrat, but I did run as one. That's one of the few judges and school boards you can cross-file.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna bring up that, in what is it, 2022, you were basically helping two candidates, Joe Dorsey and Wendy
Yeah.
Fink, run against Gillespie and Saylor.
Oh yeah, that
And
was a fun. We didn't. I forgot about that one. Yeah, I came out against two incumbent Republicans. One
right.
30 years approach chair, third most powerful guy in the House. That was Saylor, and the other one was a 20-year. Not so much against them as it was in favor of Wendy and Joe. Now those were Republicans, conservative Republicans running against establishment Republicans in the
Right.
primary, and apparently that is frowned upon, Chad, for a
Well, I was
sitting
just gonna
rep
say
to
because
come out as a
The
yeah.
Republican committee attempted to censor you or censure
The
you, excuse
county
me.
Republican committee tried to censor me. That vote failed. In the House,
Yeah,
they stripped me of three of my four committees, and
I
they moved
saw
me
that.
up in the front row beside the Democrats. At the time, we had a majority, so we bled over slightly across the
Mm,
aisle. So they put me in the front row by myself, adjacent to the Democrats. I thought they were going to try to fit me with a dunce cap,
jeez.
but we won both of those elections handily, by the way. And a lot of that was the lack of response. That was a consequence of the lack of um, responsiveness on COVID and a couple of other issues.
Right.
My conscience would not allow me not to endorse those two. And
Hmm.
they were, it was a great example of American democracy at work. Two, and I say this in the most complimentary of ways, two really totally unknown candidates who were grassroots and had had enough and defeated two longstanding incumbents, one of whom spent $500,000 against Wendy to end up losing by 11 points.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was at Round the Clock Diner with some business folks behind me, and we had a couple of the news stations there, and I endorsed them publicly a week or so before the election, and we had a mailer go out. I don't know if they needed me or not, but they had worked so hard, and I thought they earned it. I think an endorsement shouldn't be vote for me because this guy endorsed me. I think it should come. It's a little more of a guy like myself saying, "Hey, these people have earned your vote. They've worked hard. They've." So that was, yeah, that was another feather ruffler there.
I was gonna say, it's just, I found it compelling because, the Republicans decide to censure you. It's like, okay, I just, endorsed a couple people running against the incumbents. Is this what happens? You get censured for that? It's like,
Yeah, you're
luckily it
correct.
failed, but yeah, it's just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
No, that's a great, and that's the thing. That's the establishment. You're talking about a guy that was ranked the most conservative legislator in the state, House or Senate, in I think it was 2019 and 2020 or 20 and 21, regardless. So there's no, you can critique a lot of things, and I got a lot of shortcomings, but you can't critique my conservative. There's not. It's pretty hard to challenge my conservative Republican credentials, but the establishment
Mhm.
did not like the pushback on a couple of their own. So
Right.
that's how that goes down too.
Yeah. And that's also part of the problem in politics in general is like, even within your own party, if you're trying, you don't, there's someone that you think is not fit to be in office anymore or didn't react a certain way that they should have, you endorse someone against them, and even your own party gets pissed off. So it's
Well,
like,
and that was
okay.
the big. There was another issue. I won't take you down that path. There was an issue with funding at the University of Pittsburgh, who we caught doing barbaric research on aborted babies. And
Hmm,
regardless of what you think about
lovely.
abortion, I said, look, I love research, but we're not this desperate for research, regardless of what you think about choice or. But a lot of it was we talked early on about the response to COVID or lack thereof, and what I found is we needed warriors and we had legislators, and another principle from businesses like look, this it's not personal. In that case, I like those guys personally. If they were broke down along the side of the road, I'd pull over and help them out. But you campaigned on some things. I didn't see the follow through, and it's business, man. I got to call it like I see it.
Yeah,
And these other people earned the endorsement, in my opinion, and they've both been doing a great job up here.
that's awesome.
I think Chad will
Luckily, they
agree.
won, or it would have been real miserable for me.
Yeah. And even worse. Yeah.
It's just refreshing to see that we have politicians in there going against the establishment and going for the people because, we see a lot of it going the other way a lot of times. So it's really, we got to applaud you and we need more people like you in the political arena. So thank you for fighting a good fight, man.
Exactly.
Well,
Appreciate it.
thank you for having me. And your name summarized that. You guys have been very gracious to me, and I apologize if I got long-winded on you a couple times. I
No
commend
way.
what you're doing. Um, I gotta put. Chad and I talked a couple weeks ago, but I'm a big Rush fan, and we were talking a little bit
Mm.
about. I know I have no musical ability at all, but we were talking a little bit about Neil Peart, and I had to get who I think's the greatest drummer ever. But we were talking. Neil gave a shout out in Rolling Stone to Chad, saying how much he loved his drumming, and
Yeah.
I certainly love the music you guys put out. So it's an honor for me to be here too, and
Oh, cool.
I love
Thank
seeing
you.
guys from York. You guys went a long way in putting us on the map. So
Yeah.
certainly music.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that.
Well, we got a little heat for shit town, but hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, I thought maybe you could have cut that one off the
Well,
album, but yeah,
we
that's
always would tell, like, in interviews and
you
stuff,
got
we'd
to
be
be
like, well,
authentic.
yeah, well, we would always say Ed was living in Lancaster when he wrote those lyrics, so
Boom. The way around it.
that's right.
Well, you were younger then. You got a little
Yeah.
life experience.
Well,
Maybe you
yeah,
wouldn't have
exactly.
seen.
When you grow up in a little small town like York, and you just want to get out as a kid, and then you get out and you can see the rest of the world, and you're like, wait, this place is kind of
Yeah.
messed up in its own little ways. But then you always you want to go back. I love coming back home now when
For
I
sure.
come to
Yeah.
see my
Well, you
mom.
know what I tell people real quickly on that, and it used to be a pretty big deal because when we were always trying to recruit talent into our company, and I would two ways of saying the same thing, but York was never a great recruiting vehicle, but it was a great retention vehicle because once
Mm,
people got there, it's a great. The other way I put that is I've seen many places I'd rather visit because I was blessed to travel the country and, as I said earlier, to some extent the world. I've seen many places I'd rather visit, but no place I'd rather live. It
mm,
is a great place to raise a family and that sort of thing.
yeah,
If you're on the other hand, if you're a single guy at 25, it's probably not, not your first choice. So,
no,
uh, but anyway, no, but yeah, we're all, as you know, it goes without saying, we're all super proud of all that you guys accomplished. So,
wow. Well, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. And super proud of
It's
what you're doing. We are, at least.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
all
Thank you,
right.
sir. Mr. Mike Jones, man. You're more than welcome to come on at any other time. And it was Jasmine Rivera is what we told the gracious audience to go out there and vote come November, correct, sir?
Yes.
That was the name? Yeah, so give
Yes, I kind of recruited her to run, and I think she's been working her butt off. At last check, she had knocked over 5,000 doors.
Nice.
So very hardworking, and also humble and eager to learn. And yeah, I got a tremendous amount of respect for her.
Very
You're
cool.
awesome, dude. Again, thank you so much for coming on. We're gonna have you on again in the future if you're willing to come on. And thank you, Mr. Mike Jones, for fighting a good fight, man. Keep it up, and you have our support behind you. So keep it up, man.
We
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much, and you give me a shout anytime you need me. I'll be there. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Mike. Have a good one, man. Thanks again.
Mhm.
All right. So the Mr. Mike Jones there. Awesome dude, man. Wow.
Great. Yeah.
Refreshing. Chad, that was a great guest that you got on here, man. And that was refreshing to realize that we have people like that fighting for us.
Well, you have people that talk about conviction, and then they have people that that do things. And
Right.
obviously, him just going against his own party to bring in people that he thinks are better qualified for the job than the incumbents,
Sure.
and going against the party line, that's a big deal. Like
Well,
most politicians won't do that. They don't want to
it's
risk
huge.
the censure, or they don't want to risk pissing off the establishment. But he's like, fuck it, we need good people in here to represent the people of York County,
Right. Well, the
Pennsylvania.
fact that he's fighting for term limits too, it shows that he's not in this for himself. He's in
Yeah,
this to fix problems that he sees, which is what a politician is meant to do.
yeah.
So that right there, that first thing that he tried to do when going into office shows like where his morals lie and like why he's doing this job.
It's a great idea though to even on a national scale to vote for term limits, but the incumbents get to stay in until they either retire or voted out. I mean, I don't know who would vote against that. If
Right.
you're an incumbent, why would you vote against that? If you're staying in until you're voted out or you retire,
Right. Because they're grandfathered in.
right? I
Yeah.
don't know. That's a great. I just had never even thought about that as one of the ways to get term limits installed. But hopefully that works. It'd be great if he leads an effort in Pennsylvania and gets that installed. That could maybe be a roadmap for the rest of the country. It'd be great.
100%. I guess the reason why you would fight that is because you want to die in that office and then have that seat passed down to whoever, whatever other puppet you could put in there,
Right.
have them go forever with no term. It's like, so an evil thing and a selfish thing to do is why you would go against it.
Right. Of course.
Otherwise, it makes no sense. It's just crazy that I think that's what a lot of maybe that's what a lot of people are lacking. They are lacking is the common sense portion of intelligence, where they have all book smarts and stuff like that, but they can't look at stuff commonsensically, if that's a word, and lay it out there. I just, common sense goes a long way, man. Whether you could read a book and memorize it and regurgitate those facts, do you actually understand it? Does it make sense to you?
Right. It would have been great if the founding fathers would have put that in the Constitution to begin with, term limits.
Yeah.
But as Mike said, and has been pointed out many times, is that they didn't even, when they were forming the country and writing the Constitution, and they didn't even think that people would want to make this a career to be a representative.
Right.
It wasn't even a
Right.
thought in their mind. Like, I'm a farmer, I'm a businessman, I want to go serve the country for a couple years and come back and do my business. No, now it's a career. That's what's really bad about it.
Yeah. And that's what breeds this shit, is that the career politicians that are just out for themselves and doing all that jazz.
Yep.
Mr.
Crazy.
Bobby, if you want to come on and unmute. Bobby was coming in and out, so I don't know
Yeah,
if
he
that's
kept doing cameos.
yeah.
What's up? Nah, I was having a little issue with my internet.
What up, man?
Hey.
Look at that hair.
So you heard this about Puff Diddy, Stevie Wonder come out?
No.
He's
Stevie
defending.
Wonder said some shit, or he's defending
Yeah,
Diddy?
he's defending Diddy. He said he didn't see anything illegal.
Bobby's got jokes.
Hey. Hey. Uh-huh. Well, there is a conspiracy theory that he's actually has sight.
Nah, it was a joke. Let me bring this up with Bernie Sanders. This shit is crazy.
Is it what I was talking about, Bobby? About where that lady said that she was
Yep.
Yeah, man. This is a gracious audience out there. Wait till you get a hold of this, because this is insane. What we're about to show you. And if this is the way stuff went down, like Chad was saying, it opens up a whole slew of things that we need to be focused on.
Yeah, it just shows you it's crazy.
The basement to be violated. While I was being raped, a man was dragged downstairs and was told to rape a boy that was bent over in front of him, or they would kill the man and his family, who were lined up along a wall where there was also a man behind a camera on a tripod. Someone else came up to him and told him, if you don't do it, they will kill your family, and nothing can undo that. But if you do it, it'll be fine, because that boy is used to it and no one has to die.
My God.
To date, that's the hardest I've ever seen a grown man cry. That man is currently sitting in Congress. There is a system of bribery and blackmail controlling the upper echelons of society. The question is, if someone did the deed with a smile on their face because they knew their fortunes would improve, or if they did it with a tear in their eye because they didn't want to hurt the child.
Exactly.
The only way we'll be able to expose it is if the blackmailed and the children come together to name those who forced us.
And it went crazy. As soon as people saw this, I mean, you can see right here, Jennifer.
So just so folks are aware what that was, so that was a lady who was on Epstein's Island that witnessed this firsthand, and she was giving her account of what she saw firsthand. So, and she was speaking about Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did she mention his name in that interview, or how do we know it's Bernie Sanders?
Yeah, it says it. It says it at the top. It said if you didn't see it, it says it at the top.
Well, I saw that at the top, but like, did she mention his name? Does she say his name?
Yeah, so I think that was a shorter clip, Chad, because it's from like a full podcast thing. So this is a clip reposted somewhere. So
cool.
I think if you go to the full podcast of it, that's where the name comes out.
I see.
But yeah, I mean, like she said, like if you're doing it with a tear in your eye or a laugh on your face, it's just either way it's going on. Chad and I were speaking about this beforehand. Like gun to my head, you're telling me to rape a boy. My privates are not working to do that.
Well,
So
it's not even a gun to his head. It was his whole apparently his family was there too.
right. Well, I don't know if his family was there or they were going to do it later, go kill the family later.
I thought she said they were lined up against the wall in front of
Uh,
him.
it,
Either way, it's fucked
That's
up.
what she said. Yeah, that's what she said. She said they were there.
Wow.
aye. It's just
Hey, let's take the whole family down to down to the islands. Get on the private jet.
Did you hear?
Oh, now
Did you
you're
hear?
in the basement with a gun to your head. You're that Papa has to fuck the boy or we're all dying. Like what the fuck, dude? This is insane.
Crazy. It's
If that's
crazy.
real.
No,
If that, I
Bobby.
mean if it's wild.
Sorry, Chad, because this is directed toward you, Chad. So it's like, let's just say you were there, family there, right? You're forced to do this, but and you do it because you don't want your family dead, and they figure out a way to fucking get your shit to do it. Now, when you get off that island, do you not try to track down FBI or somebody and take a stand because you know this is going to happen to other people and say, listen, I know I
I
might go
don't
to
know.
jail for the rest of my life. I don't know. Like I don't
Well,
know, man.
but you mean, the theory is that Epstein had infiltrated all the way up to the top.
Right.
So who are
Right.
you going to go tell?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But
Who
it's
are you going
like,
to go tell? I mean, God, I can't even imagine being in that situation to make that fucking decision. Like, well, I guess there is no decision. You don't want your family to be shot in front of you.
right. It's just nuts, man.
Fuck.
It's fucked. And like you said, yeah, infiltrated to the fullest amount. So like if he goes to the FBI and does it, then all of a sudden this tape gets out of him with a boy. Now he's in jail for the rest of his life. His story doesn't get out anyway. It's like it's just insane, man.
Did you hear about all the GHB he had in the baby oil?
I
I
heard
did
about
hear,
the
I
baby
saw that
oil.
somewhere. Yeah, where the baby oil had GHB in it. So
Yeah, so
Wow.
intramuscular. Yeah,
Yeah, I heard he was dropping like ketamine into drinks and stuff like that. Like, what the fuck, man?
yeah.
Um,
He's got like 200 charges or something. It's crazy.
yeah,
I
he
was
he
watching.
maintains his innocence. He's going to fight for his innocence. Yeah, okay, that's what his lawyer keeps saying.
Oh
Yeah,
my
well,
God.
he's just barking that he's gonna spew names out so that like they don't I don't know, go through fully with this. I don't know, man, how this situation is gonna end or if it's like, is Diddy just gonna end up dead somewhere and he killed himself?
I wouldn't, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
It's just crazy, Chad. Like, how is nobody answering? Like, how is Ghislaine the only one in jail for the whole Epstein thing? We don't have answers of people who were there. Like, they have proof and all this stuff. And we know that this island existed now. So it's like, where is this investigation? Is there an investigation into any of this? Or is it just
I don't,
dropped?
I think it's dropped. And like I said, you still have people that probably participated in this stuff that are still in those upper echelons of government. Like, who's going to prosecute it?
Right. Uh-oh. We lost Bobby again.
Damn,
Bobby's having technical difficulties.
another cameo
Yeah.
going wrong.
Well, that's about our show. We usually take it to an hour 30, hour 40-ish, but we'll keep it going here for a little bit. It's just crazy, man. The world is falling, going to hell in a handbag, as they say. And it's like, you just don't know where to go to fight the good fight, except for like what we're doing here is like bringing awareness to this stuff and having conversations about it and asking the questions. I think that's how we get out of this stuff.
The podcast format is pushing the envelope on all this. I mean, you
Yeah.
got, Sean Ryan, fucking Joe Rogan, all those upper echelon podcasts are great because you can have, people come on and tell long form stories about why they believe in things or what they're doing, what they're fighting against. And it's not watered down by the mainstream media with the gotcha questions and bullshit.
Right. It's
Yo,
just, uh-oh, go ahead, Bobby.
No, I was just gonna say I'm sorry about my internet. I don't know why it keeps going off and on. I think this Florida shit is affecting me.
Already?
Either that or they know when Bobby's World comes up, they're you're gonna uncover
Dropping some bombs, yeah.
You got to
Yeah,
get Starlink, buddy.
that's right.
For real, I'm about to get something different. This shit is bullshit.
What's next to that guitar, Bobby? Is that a bat? It looks like some sort of weapon in between the guitars.
It is. It's a rifle.
All right.
Yeah.
Bobby's right to
With the
bear
BB
arms,
gun?
folks.
It's just a BB gun, bro.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it's an airsoft.
That's a
Yeah.
Red Rider.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This
Just
shit's
shoot your eye out, kid.
hell yeah, Will. This shit'll hurt, bro.
I was just gonna say
Oh, we
that.
used to have BB gun fights at my buddy's house.
Yo, that shit hurts. You get shot in the ass with that.
Yeah, you didn't want to get shot. We were,
Yeah.
we were playing BB gun fights at my buddy's Josh's house with fucking no face coverings, no masks, fucking
Crazy.
shooting
Yo,
each
my
other.
cousin
Idiots.
actually got killed by one, bro.
Oh wow.
He got killed at 9 years old. His friend, he didn't know the BB was in the gun. He pointed it directly to his chest and he pulled the trigger. He killed him.
What went in his heart?
Yeah,
Oh fuck. Wow.
9 years old, bro.
Damn.
What the fuck BB gun did you guys have that was that powerful and penetrable?
Yeah, that was in Virginia. Yeah,
Wow.
crazy.
You
That's
guys must have
unfortunate.
done some mods to that thing. Yeah, that is unfortunate.
I got some other stuff. I have some this hyperbolic chamber.
Yeah.
Hyperbaric?
Yeah, hyperbaric chamber for like home use.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sweet.
I have great experience with hyperbaric chambers. That's how I healed
You
my
see it?
tricep tendon. Yeah, you
Yeah.
see it? Yep. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they have a bunch of them. I mean, they have a bunch of them where you could buy them. I think the cheapest.
Rogan was just saying that if you do a hyperbaric chamber that it could almost raise your life expectancy by 20 years.
Oh, it does, yeah.
Yeah.
It's great for inflammation, for healing. It's amazing. And that's what I did for my tricep. I tore my right tricep 90%. And I did testosterone injections and hyperbaric chamber. That's how I healed it.
Yeah,
And it's amazing that again,
No surgery.
Well, that's the thing, Chad, is they don't is the medical field doesn't want you doing things like that because
Oh,
then
no.
they lose
Yeah.
out a slice of that pie.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Which is there anything more evil than that? And how do you combat that shit? Like to where we're actually getting what's best for us and what's not best for somebody's pockets. Like how to
we need to fight back.
That's why there's no cure for cancer.
yeah, right.
There's cures. They're just
Billion
not.
I mean,
dollars.
no accepted cure that from the medical establishment because they don't want a
yeah.
cure.
I mean,
Right.
look at Magic Johnson, bro. Dude have aged 50 years almost.
Right.
And he's fine, you know? Crazy.
Mhm.
Well, I think AIDS now is a lot more treatable than it once was. But yeah, he was like the first one where you're like, what the
Yeah.
fuck? These guys.
Well, I mean, okay, now you get into Fauci territory here. Fauci was the doctor pushing AZT on all these
Exactly.
on all the guys, the gay men that had it and killing them.
Yep.
That was his baby. And then you put him in charge of COVID, and look what happened.
Fauci's a real piece of shit.
He's a fucking piece of shit.
That was my conspiracy theory about AIDS back in the day is that they released it to because at first when it was coming out, they were saying, oh, it's only in the gay community. So I think
Right.
initially they released it thinking it would stay in the gay community. Then they realized, oh, it's sexually transmitted not only from penis to butthole, but from, any sexually transmitted thing or
Mhm.
needle sharing thing.
It was
And then the cat was out of the bag.
It was created to get rid of the undesirables.
That's
you know?
right.
The
The drug
deplorable.
the drug addicts, the homos,
Yeah.
Yep.
the unnamed. I'm not gonna name it.
And then they realized that also hetero people were just as promiscuous and fucking without condoms as gay people and drug addicts and all that shit. And they're like,
There's you know the comedian Jimmy Carr. He's a English guy,
yeah,
British comedian.
Yeah.
There's a clip going around where they're at some kind of forum. There's a bunch of comedians sitting around. And one guy asked him, he's like, "What's the most tasteless joke you've ever written?" He's like, I hope I get this right. If only there were more mosquito nets in Africa, there would be way less mosquitoes dying of AIDS.
Ah,
Yo, that's
I was
wrong.
like, that's fucked up.
yeah, it's fucked up, right? Because they're biting all the people with AIDS and sharing it with each other and all that jazz.
That
Or
is
getting the AIDS from the people.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy how this storm is named Milton, and then the writer, like the English writer, his
Milton
name
Berle?
his name is also Milton. He wrote Paradise Lost.
yeah, that's wild.
It's
Well,
just crazy how things work out. Like it's like a
Mhm.
simulation. the greatest-
Hurricane Sandy was also my mother's name too. Do you have a conspiracy with that, Bobby? It devastated New Jersey.
Hmm.
And she's from Jersey.
That's right.
Yeah, no, but I mean, they just, you know, I don't know how they go in alphabetical order for all these storms, and then they
Yeah, they
try.
pick lists years in advance for
Yeah,
every year. But
So
it is a crazy coincidence.
I found out that my grandfather, he got a letter from Ronald Reagan,
Hmm.
signed from the White House. It's my aunt is sending it to me right now.
sweet.
It's in the mail. Yeah.
What was that
Are you
for?
I was just gonna say. Are you
For,
gonna say?
for he was in World War II and he was in
Oh,
Korean War.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Recognize his service. That's awesome.
And I
Yeah,
believe,
both my grandfathers were.
was this the one that was a Freemason, Bobby?
No, my other grandfather was a
Ah,
Freemason. My Greek grandfather, he was Masonic.
Yeah, my mom's father, my grandpa, he on my mom's side, he landed in Sicily and his whole unit got wiped out except for him. He was the only survivor.
wow. Wow, dude. Could you imagine? Um, Bobby and I just had a friend. I'm not going to mention his name, but he lost his life to suicide, and you know, tours in Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff like that. And this is what's crazy about this, Chad, is that he was the last person from his platoon or whatever the hell it is to be alive, that either died over there or came back and then committed suicide.
Jesus Christ. Wow.
It just shows, Chad, like how crazy is this that we have no course of action for these people who go over there and fight for us and get this PTSD, and then they come back here and there's nothing for them to go through therapy and stuff for the stuff that they've seen, and they're losing their lives like that to suicide because they've seen things and did things that, you
Well,
know.
Another reason Trump needs to win and Elon needs to come in and be the government accountability office. He can help clean up the fucking VA too.
Yeah,
It's
man.
horrible.
Yeah,
And then you can start directing funds to our veterans instead of the friggin' illegals.
yeah,
Yeah, it's insane. It is. All this money going to these other countries, and they can't even help these countries that are flooded out.
And then you got Kamala I don't know when she made this comment, but she says, I know the law. And immigrants coming into this country crossing the border is not a crime.
okay,
She said they didn't break a law. It's like, yeah, they did.
yeah.
What are you talking about? You're a lawyer. You should know better.
You came into this country by crossing a border illegally.
Exactly.
It's illegal to cross a border of a country without showing a passport and coming in. And, you know, we can't go to Mexico just and cross the border. That's illegal.
You
We
get
need
put
to
in
go.
jail in Mexico. Good luck.
Yeah. You need to go.
right.
I just can't believe that she speaks that way. And when she says things like that, Chad, it gives people that are thinking of crossing the border a pass to do it because,
Of course.
Vice President saying it's not
Yeah.
illegal.
It's not illegal. That's not a crime. What?
Might as well stream through.
And then whoever she said that to, why didn't they push back on her and goes, yeah, that is actually a crime.
Yeah,
Right.
it just shows you the
law.
collusion between the media, between
Yep.
the Democrats. It's insane. It really is.
It's that, or it shows people don't have backbones when they have that spotlight on them to call somebody out during that thing because, you know, to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation sometimes could be, but that's the thing that Mike was saying, like kind of separate the men from the boys. Like you need people with backbones to be standing up for us right now because you can't sit back idly by anymore. It's not people are running amok.
Right.
Yeah, he seemed like a really on top of it type of man that I would like in office too. Absolutely.
Yeah, we need more like him.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
Jasmine Rivera, go out there and vote, folks.
I mean, if you just would get some Democrats that would, you know, be more centrist and fucking actually stand up against all the other bullshit,
Yeah.
you might have a decent party there, but
Or
it's
even
like it seems like it's lost now.
It does, man. Or even if stand for what the party stood for 15, 20 years ago.
I know, yeah. It's
40,
the Democrats are now the party of war,
yeah,
party of censorship, party of open borders. I mean,
It's crazy.
Party of normalizing pedophilia. Like I'll keep bringing it up because it's true.
Yeah.
And how did they get so fucked up? And like, there's a lot of Democrats that had to just let it happen. And then the people that still vote for him, it's like your party's gone. It's
Right.
gone. It's been radicalized, gone. How do you go through the mental gymnastics to keep defending that shit?
Well, Mike said it perfectly. They hide behind the fact that LGBTQ and try to make it so it's they're not including these people when they're
Well, they do
pushing.
it on purpose. Yeah, they
Oh,
make this
yeah.
third rail topic. You're like, you can't touch that. You can't say anything against those people. You can't say anything bad about them. If they put that label, they put that umbrella over something like pornography in schools. Well, it's protecting LG. Oh, and then all of a sudden you're a bigot. It's like, no, I'm not a bigot. Just
No.
protecting kids from pornography in their schools.
Yeah.
Like that's what's crazy. Like there's been videos of like of I think it was a preacher, a reverend. He took the books that were in the library to the school board meeting, started reading out of them. They're like, you can't say that in here. And he's like, I'm reading the books that are in the school library to you, and you can't listen to it?
Exactly.
It's crazy,
Fucking
man.
nuts.
You can't fight fucking crazy and stupid with real and facts because you just never win, man.
Right. And
It's
then they
like,
throw up this bullshit like, oh, they're banning books. Oh, this is so against the First Amendment. They're banning books. It's like, no, they're banning books that have pornography in them in schools. Period.
period, end of story. And that's where that's where shit should end. They shouldn't allow them to come back with these nonsensical things and shit that doesn't make sense. Like I don't know. Like we got to figure out how to combat this. The way is to keep voting these people out and voting these people in, but we got to take back the media. We got to shed more light on this. We got to keep talking about it. We got to keep
Well, you don't
questioning.
have to take back the media. Media's going away.
Oh,
Mainstream
sure,
media.
sure.
Slowly but
But not
surely.
quick enough. Not quick
Not
enough.
quick enough. Definitely not
That's the
quick enough.
best thing for it, Best thing.
Yeah.
Best thing that happened.
Well, this
Mhm.
November will be a telling time for us, and we'll actually see like if we're on the path to doing the right thing or if we're still just going to be conforming and fucking in this never-ending cycle. So, gracious audience, we thank you and love you. Please get your asses out there in November and vote for the people that have our back. Bobby, anything that you want to say to the audience before we?
God bless you. God bless everybody. Thank you for joining.
Oh, John, you know what I realized before we
Talk
go?
to them.
November 5th is a Tuesday.
Yes.
We either have to have a great host or just you and I fucking riffing on November 5th. So,
I think that's where we'll have to go for that, dude.
or a great guest, that is. Sorry. Yeah.
Right, right. But I think we might need to really be because we might just need to have that show to ourselves and dive into it and say all the things going on because you never
Right.
know where a guest is going to want to go. But that stuff we'll discuss.
I got one more thing. I
Uh-oh.
got one more shit. Hold on one second. Look at this shit. It just popped up. They're announcing $2 million for the Carolinas. The same day they announced 157 million to rebuild Lebanon.
Wow.
You can't make this shit up.
It's unbelievable.
That probably equates to that $700 they gave the Hawaiians back in the day.
Yeah.
It's
Per
Fucking
sick.
crazy.
It's really
It's sick.
Sad,
sick.
man. All right, folks, get out there, do your
Oh,
duty.
check this. Oh.
Uh-oh. Go ahead,
Look
Bobby.
at that.
Hey, look at that.
Look at that. Look at this.
You're not sharing
This is
anything.
us. Hold on.
Not sharing.
I'm about to.
Sharing is caring.
1970s. No fat. No fucking pieces of shit. That's all we got now is
No
fat.
tattoo, no plastic. Yeah. Look at that. That's
and look
amazing.
at those ladies. Hello.
Hey, ladies.
Sexy as hell, bro.
Absolutely.
Not caked with makeup. Have you seen some of these videos where they show these, I mean, for lack of a better word, ugly women that put on this makeup and you're like, what the fuck just happened? Have you seen any of these videos?
I've kind of seen it in real life, but no, I know like shit that they could do. They could with the airbrush makeup and shit like that, where they can make you look totally different.
They used to do these a few years ago, but makeup now is like fucking nuts. It's so caked on and like thick.
Yeah.
And these videos, there's these women, they're like, some of them have no teeth and they just look just not great. I don't want to be mean.
Right.
Then they do this makeup and you're like, holy shit, she kind of looks hot, but We know what she looked like before that.
Ugh.
It's like the what was that? What was that show? The Swan. The Swan.
Uh,
They would take like ugly women and they do all kinds of plastic surgeries to them and stuff and make
right.
them look good. And then I think one of the contestants, it might have been in Korea, I believe. I'm trying to remember the story, but one of the contestants ended up suing the woman because they had a kid and the kid was ugly. And then he found out that she was,
His parents were ugly.
on this show and got all these surgeries and shit to make herself look good. And she was like, not very good looking to start.
I was gonna say, did she not realize that the surgery doesn't get passed down through the DNA, but her actual
Exactly.
genes
No,
does?
guess not.
My God.
Anyway.
There's that incompetence that we're talking about.
Mhm.
All right,
No.
gracious audience, thank you so much. Get out there and vote. We love you. Thank you for coming on this journey. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up for you. We shall see you next week. We got an Instagram show coming up that I might be doing from my computer and not my phone. That's a whole nother story we have to
Fair
get
enough.
into on this show. But I don't want to get into it now because I'm ready to fucking murder people over it. Anywho, we love you guys. Thank you so much. Peace.
Goodbye.